Hello everyone, welcome back to Maple Street. In today's video, we are honoring Grace Kelly. Today is her birthday, and she is one of my all-time favorite actresses of the classic Hollywood era. So I wanted to honor her and her complete filmography. She wasn't in a lot of movies. In fact, my count is 11 in her entire career. As many of you know, it was cut short because she left Hollywood and became a princess. That's a completely different story, so we're gonna focus on her Hollywood career today. But yes, she starred in 11 movies. I've seen all of them, so today this is her complete filmography ranked. Let's get started. These first few movies I talk about are just bad to me. I didn't enjoy them, I was bored by them, and so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them. Number 11 goes to Mogambo. Grace Kelly stars alongside Gable and Ava Gardner, and you'd think that it would be a great movie because of that cast, but it is not. Yeah, you know, I'm not a big fan of hunting, I'm not a big fan of being bored, and this movie is all of that, and so not much else to say. Number 10 goes to Green Fire. This movie excels at set design and great explosions, but everything else it just fails miserably at. It reminds me a lot of a movie I've talked about on this channel before, The Secret of the Incas, and it's very similar to that movie in that there's an adventure to go on, they're searching for a valuable artifact, the main lead character is very dislikable, he's very arrogant, and so it's just hard to enjoy the movie. Even if I did like the movie more, I think I would still have it ranked lower because you don't even get too much Grace Kelly in it. Number 9, I have The Bridges at Toko-Ri. I've learned about myself that I just don't think I'm a fan of naval or Air Force movies, specifically ones made in the 50s. I'm fine with Army films, that's great. For whatever reason, when they're on land, I'm more intrigued and more invested. But these kinds of movies, another one that comes to mind is Strategic Air Command. It's a Jimmy Stewart movie. They're just very boring to me. Not a lot happens. It's just men working together in the military and then the occasional dogfight you see. It's not very exciting. Grace Kelly has just a few scenes in it, and it's when William Holden visits her. They have some time together, and then he returns back to war, and you don't see Grace Kelly again. And for a Grace Kelly movie, it was awful. And then for a movie on its own, it was just really boring. I did like the final 15 minutes or so. I thought those were very exciting. That's really the only good thing I have to say about this movie, though. Okay, so starting with these next movies, I find them at least decent, and obviously the further I go, the better they get. The Swan was a lot funnier than I was expecting. I think I was just expecting this boring romance film. I hate to have those expectations, but guilty as charged, I guess. But yeah, no, there were a few scenes that I chuckled in that I thought were funny. I also really liked seeing Grace Kelly work alongside Alec Guinness. I thought that was an awesome pairing. Speaking of Alec Guinness, his character is a complete bump on the log in this movie and very entertaining to watch. He's just very oblivious. The movie follows Grace Kelly. She's trying to get him to fall in love with her so that their family can be in the line of royalty. And it's just like her attempts to make him notice her are all failures, and he's just very oblivious, and so it leads to some funny scenes, funny interactions here and there. But I wasn't too big of a fan of the ending of the movie. I think the movie convinces you it's going in a certain direction, and then it doesn't end up going in that direction, and so I was a little disappointed. At number 7, I have The Country Girl. This is the one movie that Grace Kelly won an Oscar for, and so for that reason it stands out among her filmography, and she definitely gives a really good performance here. She plays a character who is supposed to have gone through a lot of turmoil, a lot of depression, and just frustration, and she does a really good job at depicting that. But she also, on the other hand, is trying to be a supportive wife to Bing Crosby, her husband in this movie, and so I think she balances out trying to stay optimistic and also going crazy inside very well. And she's very easy to root for. Like, she is the most likable character of this movie. Everyone else is very frustrating, but that doesn't mean that they don't turn in great performances. I think both Bing Crosby, this is the best I've ever seen him in. William Holden also does a great job. Movie is enjoyable. I think it's just frustrating, and the way they treat Grace Kelly's character in the movie is the most frustrating part about it. Very disrespectful to her, and it drove me crazy. And I feel like that disrespect to to her, it's never really acknowledged. There's apologies given, but then everyone just moves on and tries to become friends, and it's frustrating. I think this is a very good drama. It touches on subjects of alcohol addiction, depression, suicide even. Seeing these three together, these three big stars of the day, working together and all giving in great performances, I mean, that within itself is a reason to really enjoy The Country Girl. But yeah, at the end of the day, I don't think either of these guys deserve Grace Kelly. Number 6, I have possibly her most obscure movie, or at least one of them in her filmography. It is 14 Hours. The movie is about a man standing on the ledge of a building, and inevitably, as you could guess, in 14 hours he is either going to jump or go back inside. You don't know what's going to happen, and the movie definitely plays you a lot, where I'm watching it and I'm like, okay, like, this is a standard black and white old movie. They're going to play it safe. He's going to walk in, blah, blah, blah. You'd be surprised. It goes through some twists and turns, and there are some great scenes here. As far as a Grace Kelly movie, it's not her movie, but she is in it. She has a very minor supporting role, but she definitely still shows up and steals the screen whenever she is on camera. I mean, it's kind of hard not to steal the screen when you're Grace Kelly. But I think that aside, like, although I'm talking about Grace Kelly, 14 Hours on its own is actually a really good movie, a suspenseful movie too. So if you have a chance to watch it, I know it's a little hard to come by, definitely check it out. It's a fun one. Okay, coming in at my number 5, I have High Society, which, if you weren't aware, is actually a remake of the Philadelphia Story with Jimmy Stewart, Katharine Hepburn, and Cary Grant. I wasn't even aware of that until I was watching the movie, and I found it very similar to the Philadelphia Story, and then I found out, oh, this is a musical remake of that. And I think that because it's a musical remake specifically and not just a copy and paste remake, it differentiates itself enough, and it's still a very enjoyable movie. The songs in High Society are very catchy. Grace Kelly actually has a really good singing voice. I was pleased by it. She stars alongside Frank Sinatra and Bing Crosby, once again another team up between the two, and they both do good as well. And I also want to give a shout out to Celeste Holm because I loved her supporting performance as well. And then Louis Armstrong is in this, and he is always a delight. Whether you're listening to him or watching him on the screen, the man always puts a smile on my face. So if you're a fan of the story of Philadelphia Story, that classic love triangle story, then I think you'll really like High Society, and it's why it earns a higher spot on my ranking. So Grace Kelly made 3 movies with Alfred Hitchcock. We're in the top 4, and I haven't mentioned one of them. Well, be careful what you wish for, because my number 4 is To Catch a Thief. One of the reasons To Catch a Thief works so well, I mean, put aside the amazing cinematography, the amazing on-location filming, the chemistry between Cary Grant and Grace Kelly is incredible. Possibly the best chemistry I've seen in any of her movies. I just think they work so well together. Cary Grant's very suave as usual, but Grace Kelly is very smart, sophisticated. She's also funny and kind of unintentionally funny. But yeah, I love the chemistry between Cary Grant, Grace Kelly. Take that out and you still have a beautiful looking movie, a fun, mysterious movie too. Plus it's Alfred Hitchcock. I mean, kind of a big fan of the guy if you haven't noticed, so that within itself is great. Number 3, I've got another Hitchcock movie for you. It is Dial M for Murder. This was one of the earliest Hitchcock movies I had ever seen, and so for that, it holds a special place in my heart, but I also just love the story of it. I love how Hitchcockian this is. A man is trying to murder his wife accidentally so that no one suspects him, but then the murder plan goes wrong. And so it's so Hitchcockian to put someone in this situation, and now they have to almost outsmart themselves and prove that they're innocent, that they had nothing to do with the failed attempt. The movie goes in a lot of cool directions and unexpected directions. It is based off a theatrical play originally, and so it really takes place in 1 or 2 locations the entire time, but that's never a reason to be bored. I think the movie moves at a great pace. The murder attempt scene, I mean, you can kind of catch a glimpse of it in the background. Such a great scene. One of my favorite posters of all time too. Love that scene. So suspenseful and just plain scary. And I think Dial M for Murder belongs in the Alfred Hitchcock starter pack. It's not as talked about as his other popular movies, and I think it deserves a spot to be in the conversation of his best movies easily. Number 2 goes to High Noon. Grace Kelly stars alongside Gary Cooper in this film. It takes place in this small western town, and basically Gary Cooper, Grace Kelly, they've just been married and they're about to leave to celebrate their marriage, go on their honeymoon, until they find out that one of the fugitives Gary Cooper locked away has returned to town and is seeking revenge revenge. So Gary Cooper, as the previous town sheriff, doesn't want to leave because he feels responsible to protect the town, and he feels like if he's not there when the fugitive returns, then the townspeople are in danger. The movie is about him trying to enlist people from the town to help him in fighting the fugitive and his posse. Although Grace Kelly is in that supporting role, I think she still is very crucial to this movie plot. Throughout the movie, she's trying to convince him, no, like, let's just leave. You don't owe anything to this town. Whereas Gary Cooper is very much so like, no, I have to stay here. And for them to just be married and already be that conflicted and fighting, really interesting to see. I like the direction the movie goes in. I love the character development from both Gary Cooper's side and Grace Kelly's side. I think they really both go in good directions for their characters. And the final few minutes of High Noon are very exciting, and they involve both Gary Cooper and Grace Kelly. So it's a pretty exciting movie. I think it kind of takes its time getting started, but once it gets going, really exciting. And my number one favorite Grace Kelly movie, it has to be Rear Window. This is her best character, possibly my favorite performance from her. She's this woman who's just in love with fashion, almost as much as she's in love with Jimmy Stewart's L.B. Jeffries. I even have a board game for this movie, which if you haven't played this, highly recommend it. It's very similar to Codenames if you like the board game Codenames. Rear Window is really fun, and I'm kind of sad that I didn't have this as a background decoration. Oh well. The one thing I do love about Rear Window is she's very much so in the movie. She's not just a supporting performance that is pushed aside and doesn't really play a role. Like, she is crucial to this movie, to the progress it makes. And there's a scene in the final few minutes involving Grace Kelly, Lisa Fremont. It's so suspenseful, and that's what makes Alfred Hitchcock the master of suspense right there, because the scene is just incredible, and it makes my heart race every time I watch it, even though I know exactly what's going to happen. I think she also has great chemistry with Jimmy Stewart. The reason I choose her chemistry with Cary Grant more so is because in this movie, Jimmy Stewart's L.B. Jeffries is very resistant of showing love to her, and so it's kind of harder to see the chemistry between the two, but it's fun seeing them work things out and solve this mystery together. If you don't know what Rear Window is about, then I suggest just going into the movie, watching it, and letting it happen. It's a very exciting movie. Well, I want to end with a final happy birthday to Grace Kelly. It was a blast to watch her filmography, and I can't believe I've completed it. I mean, 11 movies isn't too much, but it just kind of feels cool whenever you complete a filmography. Anyways, I'd love to hear all of your rankings of Grace Kelly's filmography in the comments below. All right, thank you so much for visiting Maple Street. I'll catch you next time. Have a great day.